Welcome to the final episode of our deep dive series, where we conclude our investigation into the hidden interstellar agreements and the unfolding exopolitical landscape. Over the past 6 episodes, we've dissected the shadowy negotiations between Earth's hidden hand elite and extraterrestrial factions, the ethical dilemmas posed by these interactions, and the looming 2026 deadline that could reshape humanity's future.
Today, we will synthesize the historical context before moving into the most recent revelations. Our focus will be on the latest developments as detailed in the final segment of the O.O.N documents, covering the shifting power dynamics between the Greys and the Reptilians, the hidden archives of Orion, and the undeniable trajectory toward open extraterrestrial presence on Earth. But first, let's take a step back and examine how we arrived at this critical moment.
The first extraterrestrial agreements with Earth's governments were not made in a vacuum. Before the 20th century, alien interactions were sporadic, often interpreted through religious or mythological frameworks. However, as human civilization advanced technologically, the necessity for structured engagement became inevitable. By the 1940s, reports of crashed alien craft surfaced, most notably in Cape Girardeau, 1941, and Roswell, 1947. These incidents prompted clandestine discussions with visiting species, culminating in the 1954 agreement between the United States and the Greys. The exchange was simple: advanced technological knowledge in return for limited access to human biological material. The full implications of this deal, however, would not be understood until much later.
In the following decades, the agreement's flaws became evident. Reports of unauthorized human abductions, genetic experiments, and covert surveillance raised alarm among military officials and geopolitical leaders. Enter the Reptilians, an Orion-based civilization that, in 1966, successfully challenged the Greys' claim over Earth. Presenting historical documentation linking their species to ancient human civilizations, the Reptilians leveraged their claim into a renegotiated settlement, shifting the balance of power. This marked the establishment of the decennial meetings, a structured diplomatic framework determining Earth's exopolitical landscape every 10 years.
Now, in 2024, the delicate balance between these factions is crumbling. The removal of Ukraine from the voting process has ensured that the Greys secure a 13-10 majority in the governing council. This shift is compounded by the growing influence of BRICS nations, particularly Ethiopia, which recently realigned itself with the pro-Grey bloc. With these shifts, the Reptilians' long-standing control is eroding, leading to renewed tensions and strategic realignments among Earth's geopolitical players.
But political maneuvering is only one side of the equation. In July 2023, a striking image was released by the O.O.N-affiliated Twitter accounts. A fleet of extraterrestrial ships stationed on the dark side of the moon. The image, labeled "Arriving," sent shockwaves through the exopolitical community. Unlike past clandestine movements, this overt demonstration of force suggests an impending escalation. The question remains, will this be an occupation or a transition to an openly governed planet?
This impending shift is further complicated by the unveiling of the Orion Historical Archives. These records provide an unfiltered account of Earth's extraterrestrial past, challenging established religious narratives. The implications are staggering. Documents indicate that figures such as Abraham and Moses were directly linked to Orion visitors, with origins vastly different from traditional scripture. These revelations pose an existential threat to institutions such as the Vatican and Israeli state leadership, both of which derive legitimacy from historical continuity.
Adding further weight to these claims, Tweet 113 states, "Although records of Jesus are lacking, the same is not true of the figures of Abraham and Moses. They appear clearly identifiable with, for Abraham, a context totally discrepant from that of the scriptures. With regard to Moses, on the other hand, the parallelism is indisputable." Additionally, Tweet 126 condemns certain radical factions, stating, "The main leaders of Israel and the Vatican suddenly discovered that the roots of their beliefs are untrue." The two parties reacted with hatred against God, rejecting all the alleged commandments, challenging him to prove his true existence by pretending to worship his antithesis. Notably, the archives also contain explicit mentions of the seraphim, describing them not as celestial beings but as advanced extraterrestrial entities, operating within a hierarchical structure that predates known human civilization. These revelations have forced a re-evaluation within major religious institutions, with some factions reportedly renouncing conventional theological dogma in favor of a more pragmatic stance towards extraterrestrial intervention.
And as these ideological battles unfold, physical colonization has already begun. Verified reports confirm that thousands of extraterrestrials are being transported to pre-designated subterranean bases across the globe. These installations, prepared for decades under the guise of military development, are now serving their true function: housing non-human settlers. Supporting this claim are the unprecedented black budget expenditures funneled into classified infrastructure projects. The sheer scale of these constructions suggests a long-term plan, one that may permanently alter the demographic and political structure of the planet.
Shared with this growing concern are the reports of drone-like objects emitting pulsating lights seen hovering over U.S. military installations, particularly in the New Jersey area. The O.O.N Twitter account 312 recently addressed this phenomenon in tweet 135. The noisy, drone-like flying objects emitting pulsating lights that hover over U.S. territory and military installations without being attacked or disturbed are, without a doubt, U.S. military drones that appear to be trying to create a diversion to cover actual foreign vessels. This suggests that these flights may be a smokescreen, concealing the true extent of extraterrestrial arrivals under the guise of standard military activity. The increasing intensity of these sightings aligns with the heightened movement of settlers, further indicating that the transition from clandestine occupation to an openly acknowledged presence may be closer than anticipated.
The question of territorial allocation remains a pressing issue. Initial agreements identified Australasia as the primary settlement region, with Australia alone expected to host up to 2.5 million extraterrestrial residents. However, revised projections indicate that an additional million square miles may be required, raising concerns about territorial sovereignty and human displacement. Given the estimated global alien population of 4 million, the notion of shared governance is quickly being overshadowed by discussions of exclusive alien dominion over entire regions.
The reality before us is undeniable. By July 2026, the framework that has governed human extraterrestrial relations for over 70 years will be upended. The Greys have consolidated power. Orion's revelations have fractured religious foundations, and large-scale settlements are already underway. The question is no longer whether this transition will happen, but how humanity will adapt to its consequences.
Before we sign off, one final note on the OOMO-ONs. As their communications dwindled in late 2024, it became increasingly clear that their interactions were coming to an end. With the shift in focus toward the imminent arrival of the Orion and Grey factions, the OOMO-ONs seemingly withdrew from direct involvement in Earth's affairs.
Adding a final layer of mystery, reports suggest they may have retrieved the remains of two of their own, identified as YU-1 and ADAA-66. Their departure, marked by cryptic parting statements, hinted at a transition of influence, one where they would no longer intervene as humanity faced the coming interstellar reshuffling.
This conclusion leaves us with more questions than answers. Were the OOMO-ONs here solely to observe, or did they play a deeper role in the unfolding of these events? Their sudden retreat before the final showdown suggests they may have fulfilled their purpose, one we may only come to understand in hindsight.
It is worth noting in that the Twitter account 312 shared as departing message under its account signature, an intriguing reinterpretation made by them regarding the infamous Crabwood crop circle depicting both the Orion Belt 3 famous stars and a portrait of a gray alien. Known for its binary encoded message, the original formation in 2002 contained the phrase, "We oppose deception." However, in 2024, the OOMO-ONs shuffled a few words around to make their own version, suggesting a more ominous warning about external manipulations. What was once thought to be a mere cautionary statement now reads as an urgent directive. The deception has already been executed, but phrased in the past, the OOMO-ONs clearly stated that they had opposed it, yet the consequences of alien settlers arriving on Earth are unfolding in real time.
Their message looks like an invitation to prepare accordingly. This rephrasing suggests that the original message was not merely an abstract philosophical statement, but a direct signal about the ongoing extraterrestrial maneuvering surrounding Earth. The timing of this reinterpretation aligns precisely with the increased activity of both the Orion and Gray factions, reinforcing the notion that we are witnessing the late-stage execution of a long-prepared plan.
The implications of this unfolding reality are staggering. If the ongoing extraterrestrial colonization is not halted, humanity may soon find itself living under a system where sovereignty is a relic of the past.
The O.O.N warns that these immoral civilizations, unlike the openly hostile ones, do not need war to achieve domination. Instead, they use deception, strategic alliances, and long-term infiltration. With Ukraine removed from the council vote, the balance has tipped, granting the Greys a governing majority. Their next step? Finalizing the long-term treaty in 2026, which would officially legalize their settlement and governance structures.
The first waves of settlers have already arrived, placed in hidden underground bases across the globe. According to leaked intelligence, certain military installations, once thought to be simple research facilities, are in reality the new habitats for these non-human residents. In Australia alone, projections suggest over 2.5 million extraterrestrial inhabitants could be settled in isolated territories. Territories that, once allocated, will not be shared with Earthlings. However, with increasing population pressures, an additional 1 million square miles may be required, raising urgent concerns about territorial sovereignty and forced human displacement.
But this transition is not merely territorial. It is systemic and psychological. The final goal is not just occupation, but long-term control. The O.O.N confirm that these factions have no interest in violent conquest because they don't need it. Their methods are far more insidious of flattery and fear. They manipulate governments, presenting themselves as the only solution to humanity's looming crises. Gradual influence. Rather than military force, they rely on treaties, pacts, and elite control to infiltrate human systems. Puppet governments. Those in power are led to believe they hold the reins, while in reality, they are dispensable.
And there's an even deeper layer to this. The O.O.N documents state that both the Vatican and Israel were given historical records proving that their religious foundations were manipulated by extraterrestrial forces. This revelation shattered their belief structures, reportedly leading some high-ranking figures to reject their faith entirely in favor of self-serving objectives. The chronovisor, or Yellow Book, a device capable of projecting historical events in real time, was handed to the Pentagon, Mossad, and the Vatican, allowing them to witness these revelations firsthand.
Meanwhile, efforts at disclosure have been systematically derailed. While Australia, Brazil, and Russia have shown greater openness to revealing the extraterrestrial presence, Western nations have suppressed or distorted the narrative. Instead of an ethical, controlled disclosure, the New World Order agenda has accelerated, pushing humanity toward a single global government, a structure that would make alien agreements easier to enforce.
The O.O.N records confirm that 12,000 years ago, the Reptilians enslaved early human civilizations, forcing men into labor camps and controlling reproduction through priesthoods. Resources like humus and water were extracted and transported off-world, while genetic selection practices were introduced to regulate human breeding.
Now, as history threatens to repeat itself, a crucial question remains. Is there a way out?
The O.O.N suggests that the current power struggle between the Greys and Reptilians could be humanity's only chance to break free. If one faction loses political support, the treaty could collapse entirely. However, the removal of Ukraine from the council vote has ensured a Grey victory, securing a 13-10 majority in the governing body. The O.O.N explicitly warn against signing any final pacts, stating, "Do not let them dispossess you for others. To avoid domination, do not sign any pact." Approaching its midterm, the timetable of the treaty must hold the agreed conditions.
But the most chilling message concerns the long-term plan. The O.O.N records confirm that the immoral factions intend to establish a ruling class based on a specific genetic lineage, one that will first be integrated into Earth's governance, before gradually extending its legislation globally. While the documents do not explicitly state whether this ruling class will be extraterrestrial, the context suggests that it will not be composed of ordinary humans. Instead, it will likely be a genetically distinct elite, designed to govern Earth under an imposed legal structure, solidifying extraterrestrial rule over time.
The territories being allocated will not be shared. They will be exclusively extraterrestrial domains. The O.O.N.'s final warning is clear. Once the land is ceded, there is no reclaiming it.
The next 2 years will determine whether humanity awakens to resist or succumbs to compliance. The transition is already underway, but the final outcome remains undecided. With that, we leave you to ponder the significance of their departure. The future remains uncertain, but the pieces are in motion. Until next time, stay watchful, stay vigilant, stay informed, and question everything. Until next time.
We encourage you to reflect on the broader implications of this transformation. What role will humanity play in this new cosmic order? Will we assert our sovereignty, or will we become subservient to interstellar governance? The coming years will test our adaptability, resilience, and unity like never before.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the depths of exopolitics. We understand that this has been a complex and information-dense series, but we have done our best to present the most accurate and up-to-date synthesis of the O.O.N revelations.
Remember, everything discussed comes from a single document summarizing their communications, primarily via Twitter, between 2011 and 2024. For a more comprehensive exploration, check out the non-fairy tale disclosure file, linked in the description.